And yeah, I'm good.
So just between you and I,
Yeah.
it's where it gets dicey. And I kind of knew Tony might be doing this, but they're going to take Robert, the guy who's been training for like 2 years at Compadre, this other young sales guy.
I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be right back.
Cool.
Joel Pilger.
What's up,
Joel
mister?
Pilger? Wow. So great to be with you today.
I'm going to go ahead and make you co-host before I forget.
Yeah, that's cool. That was a great call with them, by the way. I really love that.
You mean the call we did prior?
Yeah.
Oh, wait, you're already co-host. I don't want to withdraw co-host.
Should we let people in?
Let's let people in and do our witty banter.
Witty banter.
Yeah, this is the time when we get to make jokes about whenever we talk about sales, a bunch of people show up and we give everyone a hard time because everyone wants to talk about sales always. Oh, and Eric is going to join us. He just can't get enough.
Yeah, he keeps on coming back.
He's in our huddle. Oh, awesome. That's fantastic. I was going to say, poor Eric, he can't get enough. He's just a glutton for punishment. Hey, at least he turned on his light so we can see him and mock him to his face.
This sales is a very timely topic right now, I feel like, for everybody.
Yeah, right.
I did my biggest day ever of reach outs yesterday. I talked to 20 some people and a lot of freelancers and stuff, and everybody's talking about the same thing. Everybody's saying this is as slow as we've ever been.
Right.
So,
isn't it interesting? Yeah. Well,
good timing. And Tim was talking about the cycle. It could not have hit me harder.
Sorry, bro. I didn't mean to.
No, I mean it's
punch
so
you when you're down.
No, it's I gotta now remember this after we get busy in another week.
Right.
Well, we'll talk about more, but just the compromise you do when you're desperate is just really unhealthy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's in this, again, we'll get into it in a minute, but in a way, the reason we're talking about this actually is in response to several owners, more than several actually, that have noticed we'll call it the peak is pretty clearly behind us, whatever that peak was, right? Was it fourth quarter? Was it third quarter? I don't know, but it definitely is not, we're definitely not peaking now or in February. So what's up with that? What do we do about it?
Yeah, right, interesting. I know, Eric, you say like it's the slowest it's been ever, but I think that's just one of those weird biases in our brain, right? Because it's just been a while, but I know there's been bad times, and I don't feel like this is the worst this has ever been. It just is also just January, like there's just like a reality of January, and Google layoffs just freak us out on top of it.
Yeah, I think make Tim, in fact, make sure that if I don't ask you, remind me we'll talk a little bit about cyclical and seasonality stuff, because sometimes that's also a helpful bit of data we can give people. All right, well, I'm going to start us off, Tim, because it's 1 minute after the hour, which means we only have 29 minutes to get through everyone's favorite topic, otherwise known as sales. So welcome, everybody. Let me hit official record on my side. Where is it? Come on, Mr. Zoom. Where's your button? There we go. Oh, I'm already recording. Okay. Shame on me. Okay. Greetings, everyone. I'm Joel. Welcome. And I'm here joined by my compadre, Tim Thompson. How are you, Tim? This is the weekly briefing, which is this 30-minute jam session we do every week. It's really the way that Tim and I, we're trying to, of course, he and I and our team at revThink, we run a community of a little over 500 studio and production company owners. And we're, of course, working with a lot of individual owners one-on-one, directly as consultants and advisors. So all that to say is we try to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in our industry. And we're always listening out for the patterns, like what's going on, what's changing, what does everyone need to know about? And this is the 30 minutes where we show up and say, let's share what we're hearing and what other owners are talking about. So Tim, this is the perfect segue for me to say, how did this topic end up in the briefing today?
Yeah, sure. I think you hit on all the setup here very well. So thanks for doing that. As Joel said in revCommunity, JC posted just a message out there to create a sales get together, process what's going on in sales best practices, get some information, and possibly make some smaller groups. I know JC's heart really is to say, hey, if we can learn from each other, maybe we can do breakout sessions and what have you. So we've been facilitating some of these requests. And today the request was about sales. And we talked about the sales routines and process and mechanisms you have to have in place to grow and develop a sales pipeline. But really what the desire to put it here on the weekly briefing as well isn't just self-serving that we only have to do one topic in a day instead of two different topics. The reality is like that group of people of 20 people aren't the only people talking about sales. It is something that a larger part of the industry is asking questions of if we're slow. And I don't know if this happens to you, Joel, but I know that things are slow because I feel like people use us as the thermometer. And so I get texts from friends and chat messages, whatever, like, hey, are other people slow? And I haven't talked to them for a year, but they're asking me. And they just want to verify, is it just me or is it everyone else that's having this experience?
Well, agreed. I'm also seeing some similar inquiries coming in as well. But what I'm also thinking of is it was probably a couple months ago, we started to notice some posts in the community. I think Eric may have been, who's here from Coop, may have been the instigator of one of those, which is just like, hey, is it slow? Is it me? What's going on out there? And a bunch of people started to chime in. And then, of course, behind the scenes at revThink, we started looking at the actual data because we can look at sales data that's in aggregate from 30, 40 different companies and see, oh, there was a peak, right? Call it Q3, Q4. And things maybe are slowing down. Does that mean recession? Does that mean slowing a lot? Don't know. And then, of course, there's always this typical pattern in January that January is just not a great month. So everyone's a little bit in that, what is going on and should I be freaking out? And then they start to ask questions like, and if I am supposed to freak out, what do I do about it? And so today I think was a good moment to say, let's talk about sales. What is it? And what's the dream of sales, and what would be, or what are the obstacles that prevent you from succeeding in sales?
So should we start with just a really quick recap of the survey we did
earlier
today, and just a couple of takeaways of questions or areas that people feel like they deal with most or feel less confident or more confident?
This will be a bit of repeat. This is, of course, anonymous data, but of the 19 people that were in this huddle today, we asked some really simple questions. One, it was kind of interesting to just say, how do you feel about sales? And what we thought was interesting here was a little over a third said, I hate sales. Okay, so not surprising. most of these businesses are run by creatives, and creatives generally hate sales. Now, sometimes it depends on how we define that word, but I thought it was interesting that the next highest response was, I love sales. Like, I thought love sales was going to be way at the bottom, but actually about a third of the owners said, I love sales, which was kind of interesting. But look at this, Tim. My creative studio has a working sales system in place. Only 42% actually have a sales system. So that was, I think, kind of surprising. But once we looked at the size of the companies later, it made sense. Like, these smaller companies, these younger companies are the ones that are most likely not having a sales system in place.
Yeah, it matches our pattern of the seasons of a creative firm. And as you're growing your business, you're taking on more and more ingredients to run your business. And sales comes early, but not first.
Yeah.
So when you're at these tipping points and you have to master sales, it's one of the first places you go. And we talked about the sales system in a few different ways. One is just what a sales system is. What do we mean by a system?
Right.
And kind of referring to last week, systems are things that give you visibility so that you have insights so you can get direction and finally make decisions, right? So a place to capture the information and track your progress. I like to call it the hooks to hang your hats on, a place to just bucket to throw information into that you can sort through later and build some strategies to it. Is how the system works. But you have to match that system with routine, because if you have a system and you never touch it, doesn't really get you anywhere. Or if you only touch it when you're quiet, you're going to get these really horrible feast and famine cycles in your business. So the system, if it's easy to use and likable and giving you those insights, then you will more likely maintain it on a week by week basis at minimum, and therefore keep sales moving as a through your company and gaining progress. That's the desire of early sales.
So I thought it would be nice to show this diagram, because if you run a small studio that's younger, maybe you've been in business 5 or 10 years, but you're still in these early seasons, just notice it's totally okay to not have a sales system, to not really think of sales as a routine yet, a method, because you've probably mastered creative a long time ago, and then you launched your business and you started mastering this entrepreneurship ingredient, but then your next thing to master is production. So for many studio owners, we were telling them today, don't beat yourself up too much, because you're just on the cusp of starting to master something called sales and finance. And then, of course, down the road, we'll get into things like marketing and operations. But we were, in a way, just like trying to help normalize these people that are like, oh, I just suck at sales and feast or famine cycle. And, shame on me. I should be better. I should be better. And I think, you had an encouragement, Tim, of just like, it's actually very normal. You're like everyone else.
Yeah. And it makes sense, right? Like, we have to take on challenges as they come. But there's also a moment of breakthrough that happens in all education, all growth that we have, all learning that we have. And it's usually caused by some kind of crisis. Now that I have this crisis, I'm going to lean into that crisis and figure it out this time, right, instead of giving up and going away. So what am I looking for in a system that I know are going to get me results? Or how do I achieve the results I desire for my business in the right way? Maybe even give me a shortcut. I'm going to jump on this phone call because Tim and Joel are going to give me some pointers to give me a shortcut getting there. That's exactly what our desire is, to help people move through this process, encourage them to get to the other side. But the reality is, we use the term mastery. You're going to have to master the sales process. It has to become a regular part of your business routine. And that regularity is what is actually the result. That's the answer to this question. Many of the sales problems we have are because we're not doing something on a regular basis. So we're not achieving normal, regular growth. I was working with a client yesterday. They told me their monthly sales goal is $800,000 a month. Okay. I thought that's an amazing achievement to have that. And by the way, they're hitting it. So you have to wonder, like, there are people out there knowing that they can and will hit $800,000 a month every month. What are they doing? No different than what we're telling them to do. Focus on it on a regular basis, know who their targets are, position themselves, qualify those leads, and land those projects. So that process is just as viable for somebody at 1 million It is at 20 million. How do we actually institute it now so that we can hit that $20 million mark in the future?
Well, you're reminding me. So when someone, I'm sure there's people here listening, and I would be among them if I was still running my studio. When I hear $800,000 a month, I hear that and I think, well, Tim, if that was true, that would be my dream. I have nothing, I have no problems at that point. Because I mean, with $800,000 coming in, right? Like everything is solved, everything works. There's plenty of money. I'm rich. We're doing great creative because with that much money, et cetera. So first of all, that's where our minds go. So here I'm gonna ask a question, because we polled everyone today and we asked them, what is your dream? What is your dream? When you think about sales, what's your dream? So everyone here, what would you answer? One of these three things. One, my dream is that we don't have to prove ourselves. Great projects, they just get awarded to us. Two, we don't have to justify our costs. Big budgets just get handed to us. That's a pretty nice dream. And then the third one was, we don't have to find great clients, they find us. So which of those three would be your dream?
Yeah, let's get some chat in here. 1, 2, and 3. Let's hear what we could do. Another survey of us.
A little informal survey right here and now. Yeah, feel free to drop in the
really
chat.
fast again so people can be reminded what 1, 2, and 3 are.
Okay. So number one, we don't have to prove ourselves. Great projects just get
all of the above.
To us, right?
Nice, Brian.
Yeah. Number two was, we don't have to justify our costs. Big budgets just get handed to us. And number three was, we don't have to find great clients, they find us. 1, 2, 3.
What I like about that question is it brings the exercise of where the problem is for you specifically, or what you think your first focus needs to be. And that's a great place to start in building a sales strategy. Where do I feel most weak that I need the information, or where do I feel the least capable that I need to put some things in place to take care of that for me?
Okay, you can pick all three, but you're cheating, right? Okay, so here's the results. I'm going to share them. I thought this was actually very surprising, but it says something. 2/3, a little over 2/3 said, we don't have to find great clients, they find us. So think about what that says. I wish people would just find us. That's my biggest problem, or that's my biggest dream. Just find me, Tim. Second one was surprising, because I thought this bottom one was going to be the second most popular. But you can see here, 1/4 of people said, we don't have to justify our costs. Big budgets just get handed to us. That's an interesting dream for sales. And then the last one was really small. This whole thing, we don't have to prove ourselves. Projects just get awarded to us. That doesn't, like, it feels like people are already there. They feel like, I'm pretty close to that dream. I want this great clients find us. What do you see there, Tim?
Yeah, I think this is where we identified that most of the issues that people are talking about that identify as sales are actually, they're identifying as marketing problems.
Right.
And our total dad joke is, we know there's a difference between sales and marketing because they're spelled differently. There's actually 2 different jobs attached to the outcomes that you're looking for. And if you're thinking the salesperson is going to solve a marketing problem, you get caught in it's kind of a chaos. You're not getting the results you want to, or you push something too hard, or to be honest, you're actually trying to accomplish way too much in the first bite. You're just not going to ever get there. Where marketing can lead to curiosity, and curiosity can create engagement. Engagement begins the sales process of moving from interest to intent. So the early stages of feeding your sales team is actually a marketing exercise, and getting the information out there of moving people from unaware to aware about your brand or your projects or your personalities, whatever your assets are you're going to put out there.
Yeah, here's a bit of the payoff on that in terms of looking under the hood of that previous question. This one, we said in the area of sales, our biggest frustration is, and look right here at the top, generating new quality leads. And then interestingly, number 2 is consistently nurturing those deals and or upselling. So there's a bit of a, yeah, that's my dream. And that's also my biggest frustration that I'm seeing there.
So I feel like when, just like the last conversation we had an hour or so ago, that many of the things we're talking about lead to questions. So if you do have questions, just throw them in the chat here, and Joel and I can read them off and talk about it. Or if necessary, we can put you on camera with us too. But as we're discovering these, what other people are talking about when it comes to sales, if that inspires something in you, or you would like some more information, I'd be happy to talk about it. So Joel, you did, geez, I feel like we just wrapped this. Maybe we started this in Confab way too early, but you recently wrapped the sales keeping process in Confab, which would you guys go through it in 4 weeks?
Yeah, it was a 4-week process. And before that, we had done a 5-week series all about let's build a simple marketing system. So it was sort of a 1-2 punch type of thought.
And we choose the word sales keeping so that people reference it and recognize it. It's like bookkeeping, something that you do regularly, and it has similar process and routine to it. Why don't you give us like a 3-minute overview of what the sales keeping method is about, so people could start thinking about what they need to put in place to start building and growing sales?
Sure. Well, I'll preface this by, first of all, giving a couple definitions. One, we like to define sales a bit differently than those of you that get triggered when you think about sales as hassling people and being a used car salesman. We like to define sales as sharing your expertise and building relationships. So a lot of you, when you hear that, you say, oh, well, that sounds kind of cool. I could do sales now. We also say, well, what's marketing? Marketing is all the activities and materials that allows sales to do its work. So now you start to realize, oh, sure, if I'm going to share expertise and build relationships, I need to have things like a name and a website and some sort of like a point of view and all these other things. It's like, right, getting that out there is the work of marketing. So it's sometimes helpful just to give people clarity around what are we talking about? And here I'm going to share something because this reveals a lot in our little survey. Is we asked people, okay, we know that sales can't be successful without great positioning and marketing. How's your positioning? And look, almost 80% said needs work. But check this out. What about marketing? Our studio is not great at marketing. 95%. Okay, so I'm just going to state the obvious here, that if marketing is all the things we do to allow sales to do its work, if you suck at marketing, it follows that you're going to suck at sales. And I know that's harsh, right? But so that being said, the very first step in sales keeping is auditing your marketing. It's saying, what are all the prerequisites before we can even go out and sell? We need to have things in place. Great positioning, right? Solid brand, just all these things that we're doing to build awareness, help people move from unaware to aware to interest. And then a sales keeping method is really one of how are we generating leads? How are we capturing those leads? What's the system and the routine that we follow that allows us to then start conversations with these people and qualify them? Because once we start doing this, we're generating a lot of conversations, and we want to eliminate all of the people that are not good fits. So that qualifying is a big, big part of it. And then, of course, go ahead.
Oh, no, so what I love about qualifying it as a term or understanding is it even follows up with David Finnegan's question too. Where should I start? Maybe I'll ask David's question, because the same works to talk about how qualifying work happens.
Right.
But David's question is, I'm trying to implement is being brave and saying no to jobs because that come in even when it's quiet. For example, because they're profitable, I guess there's sales and sells when growing a business. So this thought process of like, when do I say no and why do I need to say no to a project? Regardless of, even if I'm slow, I recognize that's not, and we would say, a qualified project.
Sure.
And what I love about the idea of qualifying is this thought process is that you're being analytically understanding what makes you successful or who's a good fit. I made the joke in the last conversation of, if you have an ear, nose, and throat problem and you go to a foot doctor, you're not going to get the right results. Or if you are those doctors, why would you want a foot in your ENT business? So this idea of qualifying so it's a right fit for you and gives you the right opportunity and growth, that's hard work, but it's good work up front. And the hard part is this confidence. It feels so weird to be specific. to be
Yeah.
clear in your positioning, because you're afraid you're going to get rid of money. You think you're turning something down by doing it. And instead, you actually are turning something up by doing it. You're actually clarifying more of what you do, and the value proposition becomes higher.
Yeah. First of all, I'm going to acknowledge that fear because it's super real. It's super weird to turn down money when you need it. So totally get that. And that's very human. I think my encouragement would be to think in these sorts of terms. There's like a short-term, long-term play that we're ultimately heading towards called I'm going to put a routine in place, a system. Okay. So for example, in sales, we talk about a sales pipeline. If I have a stage in my sales pipeline called qualifying, how do I know when somebody's qualified in that stage so that I can move them forward in the conversation? It's something really simple. Like we talk about the 3 R's. Okay. Is this good for the real, for the relationship, for the reward? Well, in that conversation, I just have a note that says, are they 1, 2, 3 R's? And then you say to yourself, well, if it's only, I have a goal for the long term that I want all 3 of these R's, because that's what makes me successful and my clients successful, right? This is the foot doctor saying, I only want foot patients. But we realize in the short term, there is but here's money coming in the door. How do I say no to it? I think it's putting the system and the routine in place to simply be conscious and intentional of why you're saying no to the ear patient, even though you're a foot doctor.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So in the short term, if you say yes to those things because you need the money, you just want to be conscious about it and say, I'm saying yes to something that will very likely keep me busy. The thing that I really want to say yes to is just around the corner. And I'm going to note, I made a choice back here and now I regret it. But at least the system gives you that. What is it, Tim? You call it like the decision point. Like, what's the decision point? And if you consistently use that system and that routine to make that decision, you can then start to make different decisions with more confidence. It takes time, but it's a transition.
I think it might also be good to point out how to say no. That,
Sure.
you're not just ghosting somebody, or you're not insulting them by saying no to them.
Yeah.
What you're doing is presenting yourself as a possible different value proposition than how they're considering you. If somebody's calling you to have you design their child's 8th grade birthday party invitation, they're clearly not qualified. Isn't it important for you to establish that with that person? So there's a big nuance between the birthday card and something that actually fits your capability, but not a good fit for you. And then Ben Apley just said it's even more interesting when you have to manage sales when you're already busy.
Right.
I'm busy and sales keeps coming in. When and how do I say no to not lose even a qualified lead, not lose that lead or that relationship in the moment, but recognize the opportunity isn't current? Joel, you would say that's a brilliant opportunity to tell somebody, I'm sorry, I'm too busy, is actually a really, really good thing to keep them coming back. I know that sounds really funny, but you're that opportunity to say, this is not the moment because I'm too busy, is something they actually want to hear, because people want to work with successful people. And if you're showing success, they're going to come back to you. So even that ability to say no is a good reason to say no.
I mean, there's some simple economics. I think we would call it, you can restrict supply and demand will go up. And if you just think of simple supply and demand, but I love the point you made about how to say no, because first of all, there are techniques where you never say no. It's the client that is always the one saying no because of the choices that you're giving them. And so a simple hack is when you look at like the 3 R's and you say, wow, this one doesn't hit on all 3 R's. You should have a strategy for, well, if it only hits on the relationship and the reward, how could we make it hit on the real so that we can say yes? And that's a whole conversation you have with your client, right? And whether it's the budget, whether it's the way we work together, whatever the thing is that you're trying to increase, where you would say, okay, now it is a good fit. Now we will take it on. So there is, you only say no in certain ways, and there's an art to doing it, but it's all in the interest of how am I going to qualify make this project successful, make my client successful, and ultimately drive my business forward over the long term.
So here's a total counterintuitive move. Sorry, not mood. Move. When you're busy, do outreach and tell people that you're busy.
Right.
Instead of waiting until you're quiet to do outreach. That's that whole, like, people can smell when you're desperate. Well, then do outreach when you're not desperate.
Yeah.
And that sounds counterintuitive because I'm too busy to do outreach. And that's why we want people to put systems and routines in place for that outreach. So it's not a heavy lift to do basic outreach, but just to be able to keep in the front of mind, keep people and keep your brand in the front of other people's mind, and knowing this is the team I want to work with when I have the opportunity.
I'm thinking of two studios that I'm again on the inside of that I'm working with that are doing exactly what you said, because they're actually literally booked out 6 months. Okay. So they're booked out 6 months. So they're occasionally reaching out to clients and saying, hey, just want to give you a heads up, right? We're booking projects for August and I'm reaching out to offer you first availability. And the clients are like, what? 6 months? I mean, what's going on over there? And what am I missing out on? And it creates this really interesting conversation called, yeah, if you want to put a hold on our schedule, right? Let's talk about what your needs are in August. Now, what's interesting to your point, Tim, is you can still speak the same narrative into the universe without being truly booked 6 months in advance and create that same sort of curiosity, right? That's just good conversation and salesmanship and offering your client, right, priority, in line, et cetera. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah. In the other area you can do sales is in the bidding process. When you're talking to your client while they're landing the job that you already have them for, you can sell the next job in the bidding process. You can position yourself in saying, okay, well, in this project, we're going to give you this opportunity and these leads. And then the next project, which isn't even yet spoken yet or identified, but you're walking them through how you are a team builder or a long-term vendor for them, or opportunity to grow with them as they expand their services.
Sure.
Okay, how do I do that? Well, every time I talk to them, every follow through I do from the beginning of the project to an end of project is an opportunity to keep that client going. And what I love is the practice of using words. When you're talking to an existing client that you already won, this is a great moment to practice getting these words out of your mouth with somebody that cares. So then when you're on a call with somebody for the first time and you're a little bit nervous, you've already practiced those words in a successful situation and you're not afraid to use them again.
Well, I was just thinking of David again here in the comment he shared before. By the way, thanks for the feedback on the podcast there. But that idea also of, Tim, we talked about this transition, like in the short term, you're going to take some projects that maybe you should be saying no to, but over time, you're going to create space in order to say yes to the kinds of projects and clients you really want to work with. Don't forget. So David, one thing I would say to you is, don't make sure that you're swinging for some big fences right now, right? Like, it can't just be, I'm always talking to the same people who think of me the same way and they think of the company I was 5 years ago, right? Remember, sometimes it means, yeah, part of my system and routine is I make some long bets. Like I swing for some fences. I'm going to reach out to that dream client and say, hey, would love to have a conversation. Because eventually one of those is going to hit and you'll be in that place of like, I'm so glad I said no to that small thing because this big thing finally landed.
Yeah, well said. Okay, listen, it's a half-hour mark, but we have 32 people still on this call. So what I want to do is be respectful that people can get off, but I clearly, if you want to keep that conversation going, I have 10 more minutes. I can keep on talking, but if I stay on, I want to answer questions and not just have us do all the talking. So if you're game, I just want to call it out that I think Joel and I can both extend our time for 10 minutes. You're good, Joel, for 10 minutes?
I can't. I actually have to hit the road, but are you cool if I leave?
Sure.
And you do Q&A?
Yeah. If you guys give me some direct questions, I'm happy to answer it. If you want to jump off, it's great. But I just want to leave people hanging if there's anything else they wanted to hear.
Take advantage of it. Get some time on Tim's brain.
This is the moment.
So,
all right. So what question can I answer? Let's wrap it up first then for the half hour, and then we'll, that way Lydia has a cut, and then we can.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll say thanks everyone for being part of the weekly briefing. We're going to actually extend and do some Q&A with Tim. I have to run because I have a plane to catch and all that. But Tim, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Joel.
Okay, bye everybody.
So I hope this has been helpful to you and breaking down